What if I told you that almost everything that breaks you isn't what is happening to you, but what you refuse to release? You hold on to control, onto people, onto outcomes, onto identities that have long expired. And then you wonder why you feel heavy, restless, drained. The world whispers, "Let go." But the mind clings tighter, terrified that without its grip it will fall apart. And yet, the opposite is the truth. What collapses is not you. It is the illusion of yourself that you have mistaken for your real self. The Stoics knew this long before modern self-help wrapped it in comforting slogans. They lived through empires that burned, families that died, fortunes that vanished overnight. And they still wrote about peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He was reminding himself that freedom begins where attachment ends. But letting go isn't weakness. It is not a surrender to apathy or indifference. It is strength of the highest order, the ability to loosen your grip on what you can't command, and hold fast only to what you can. Your thoughts, your choices, your character. That is the first law of freedom. Think of your life. How many times have you clung to anything long after it stopped serving you, be that relationship, job, dream from an older version of yourself? You tell yourself it is loyalty or persistence, but deep down it is fear. Fear that if you let go, you'll have nothing left. But for the Stoics, the opposite would be true. In releasing, you at last have all that is important: yourself, your peace, your power to respond. As Seneca once put it, "He who is brave is free." He didn't mean the soldier charging into battle, he meant the one who stops fighting reality. Letting go isn't escape, it is alignment. It is saying, "I no longer resist what is beyond me, and in doing so, I reclaim what is within me." Modern life teaches us to grasp tighter, control outcomes, curate images, script the future. We scroll through illusions of stability and call it success. But beneath it all, anxiety festers. Because every time you grip what is slipping, you are reminding yourself that you don't trust life. The Stoic sees that tension clearly. He watches the mind try to hold smoke and laughs gently. He knows that what is meant to stay will stand firm, and what must leave will leave no matter how tightly you hold. Imagine your mind as a hand. When it is clenched in fear, it can't receive anything new. Only when it opens, empty, steady, present, can it hold truth. That is what the Stoics practiced daily, the art of unclenching. Epictetus taught, "Suffering doesn't stop when you let go. It changes." Pain starts to be a teacher, not a jailer. The Stoics didn't run from pain. They studied it, sat with it, dissected it until it revealed its purpose. Because they understood something we forget in our age of distraction. Pain always carries a message, and that message is freedom. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from those he trusted most, endless wars, the death of his children, and the burden of ruling an empire on the edge of collapse. Yet, he could write in his journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That wasn't denial, that was mastery. He refused to let pain define him. He turned it into his forge. When life collapses, most people look for escape. The Stoic looks for meaning. He asks, "What is this moment trying to teach me about myself?" Because loss isn't the punishment. It's the invitation. The invitation to see what's still standing after everything else falls. Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men, Seneca once said. He believed that hardship purifies us, that every time life strips away one of the things we cling to, comfort, certainty, pride, it is removing an impurity from the soul. Letting go, then, isn't about losing, it is about refining. Every surrender polishes you until only what is essential remains. You've probably felt this yourself. The breakup that shattered you, yet taught you who you are sans someone else. The failure that broke your ego but gave you humility. The rejection that burned your confidence but lit your discipline. Those weren't punishments. They were awakenings. The Stoics didn't pray for an easy life. They prayed for the strength to endure a hard one, because they knew that comfort creates weakness and struggle creates character. Every time you endure without resentment, you reclaim power. That is the hidden victory in loss. The moment you realize that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it is the ability to remain calm inside it. Modern culture avoids this lesson. We treat discomfort like a disease, struggle like a mistake, while for the Stoics both were medicine. Pain was the scalpel that cut out delusion, the hammer that forged virtue, the mirror that showed you who you really were when everything else was taken away. Think of that moment when you thought you'd lost something you could not do without. The mind screams, resists, bargains. But if you stay still long enough, silence arrives. And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. You start to see that you are still here, breathing, aware, whole. That is what the Stoics called ataraxia, tranquility of soul that can't be taken by external loss. Epictetus, once a slave, said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can conquer my will." That's what letting go gives you. The one thing nobody can control, your inner freedom. You realize that the world can break your plans, but it can't break your principles. The moment you stop chasing control is the moment you start mastering yourself. You are no longer dragged by every emotion, insult, or storm. You stop reacting, you start responding. That is the turning point between suffering and wisdom. Instead, the Stoic asks, how can I use this? That is the alchemy of hardship, turning chaos into clarity, anger into discipline, loss into strength. When you let go of the need to be comfortable, life stops threatening you, because there is nothing left to take. So, you see, letting go is not an act but a transformation of identity. The old self, addicted to control, dies, and in its place is born a calmer, wiser, freer self. That is what it means to grow beyond pain, not to escape it, but to absorb it, to use it, to rise from it. Herein lies the silent secret by which the Stoics lived. What you lose outside, you gain inside. Every ending conceals a new strength waiting to be found. Every heartbreak reveals the power to love without attachment. Every disappointment teaches the art of patience. That is what it means to let go, not to drift away from life, but to meet it without armor. To stop demanding that it should be easy and, instead, become the kind of person who can endure anything. That is where unshakable peace begins. Letting go doesn't mean feeling nothing. It means feeling everything and still choosing peace. The Stoics never ran from emotion. They just refused to be enslaved by it. They saw emotions as natural storms, unavoidable, powerful, but temporary. You can't stop the rain, but you can learn not to drown. As Epictetus would say, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Every emotion is a spark. Anger, fear, grief. They all begin with a thought, with a judgment. What the Stoics learned to do was to trace back that spark to its source and ask, what belief is fueling this? If the belief was false, the emotion lost its fire. That's how they disarmed chaos, by understanding it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "When you are offended, know that it is your own opinion that offends you." He wasn't suppressing emotion, he was studying it. He knew calm isn't gifted, it is built. Every insult, every loss, every disappointment is training. The more you practice letting go, the lighter your soul becomes. You've probably felt this truth in your own body. The tension in your chest when you can't control a situation. The way your mind replays a hurt again and again, like a song you hate but can't turn off. The Stoics would tell you to stop wrestling with it, just observe. Let the thought pass without shaking hands with it, because what you don't feed, fades. Emotional control does not come from denial, it comes from distance. When you stop identifying yourself with each feeling, then you begin to see them for what they are, visitors, not owners. You are not your anger, not your fear, not your grief. You are the sky behind the storm. And, when you remember that, the storm loses its power. Seneca did this every morning. He'd imagine all possible misfortunes, the loss of wealth, friends, health, and then remind himself that none of them could touch his character. He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary. That was his way of staying unbreakable. He rehearsed loss so that when it came, it found him ready. That is not easy to do in today's world. We're taught to react in an instant, to broadcast every emotion, to treat outrage as strength. The Stoic path is the opposite. Quiet power. A kind that doesn't need to prove anything. A kind that listens more than speaks, acts more than complains. Letting go of emotional reactivity isn't apathy. It is clarity. It is opting to respond from reason, not impulse. It is saying, I decide what deserves my peace. Because most battles aren't fought outside, they're fought inside, between your higher self and your habits. The Stoics used daily rituals to anchor this clarity, morning reflections to prepare for the day, evening meditations to review it. They lived deliberately, examining every reaction. Marcus would ask himself, did I act with justice, with temperance, with courage, with wisdom? If not, he didn't shame himself. He learned that is the Stoic difference, self-mastery through awareness, not self-hatred. You can practice the same before reacting. Breathe. Ask, is this under my control? If yes, act. If no, release it. That single habit can change your life, because most suffering is born not from what happens, but from how long we hold it. Consider emotion as water. In the cup, it nourishes. In the flood, it destroys. The Stoic learns to pour carefully, to feel fully but not to drown. That is emotional discipline, the power to experience life without being consumed by it. And in that calm, something incredible happens. You start to see life clearly, not through the fog of desire or fear, but as it is. You stop chasing what does not matter. You stop resenting what you can't change. You start living as the Stoics did, in rhythm with the truth. Because at the heart of Stoicism isn't suppression, it is serenity. The peace that comes when you finally understand. The world doesn't owe you control, but it offers you wisdom if you are willing to let go. Transformation doesn't start when things get easy. It begins when you stop begging for an easy life. The Stoics didn't seek comfort, but clarity. They knew the fire of struggle would either destroy or refine them, and that choice was entirely their own. Letting go was their way of stepping into the flame unafraid. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plague, famine, betrayal, and endless war, and yet his writings are filled not with bitterness but calm. How? Because he stopped trying to control the storm and instead learned to be the stillness inside it. He once wrote, if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you but your judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. He was reminding himself that the mind is the battlefield. Win there, and the world loses its power to wound you. When you let go, you stop identifying with every loss. You stop saying, this shouldn't have happened, and start asking, what can this teach me? That shift is everything. It turns victimhood into vision, chaos into clarity. Seneca called this the art of transmutation, the process of turning misfortune into wisdom. A gem cannot be polished without friction, he said, nor a man perfected without trials. Pain doesn't disappear when you let go, it evolves. It sharpens you. It gives you depth. Every disappointment sands away your illusions. Every heartbreak opens your capacity for compassion. Every failure teaches humility. You start realizing that growth has always been disguised as loss. The Stoics knew that every time you cling to what is gone, you are missing what is becoming. Epictetus taught his students to embrace adversity as a teacher, not an enemy. He said, difficulties show what men are. To the Stoic, life was a series of training grounds. Each challenge revealed your discipline, your courage, your understanding. When you let go, you are not quitting. You are stepping back far enough to see the lesson hidden inside the pain. The modern mind runs from silence, but that is where transformation happens. When you stop numbing your discomfort with distractions and finally sit with yourself, you start seeing your patterns, the attachments, the fears, the illusions. What others missed in noise, the Stoic learned in solitude. Marcus Aurelius didn't write the Meditations to impress others. He wrote it to confront himself. Each word was an act of letting go, of ego, of resentment, of the need to be understood. True transformation happens quietly. It is not the dramatic change the world claps for. It is the soft unlearning of everything false. You stop reacting. You stop proving. You stop explaining yourself to those who will never understand. You start choosing peace over validation. That is when inner strength starts, the moment you realize you no longer need the world to agree with you. The Stoics believed the soul grows stronger through voluntary hardship. That's why they practiced discomfort, cold baths, plain meals, simple living. They wanted to prove to themselves that happiness didn't come from excess, but was a product of mastery over desire. When you let go of what you think you need, you find what truly sustains you. You discover that most of what you chase are chains disguised as rewards, and the moment you realize you don't need as much as you thought, the world loses its power over you. You stop chasing status. You stop fearing loss. You stop confusing noise for meaning. That is freedom. Not the kind that you buy or earn, but the kind you build within, a calm that cannot be stolen. Seneca said, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." The Stoics saw that the things we call blessings, comfort, wealth, approval, are often the things which weaken us. They teach dependence, but hardship, if faced rightly, rebuilds you. It strips away the unnecessary until all that remains is truth. Letting go, then, is not a retreat. It is a return to simplicity, to sanity, to strength. When you stop gripping life so tightly, you finally start living it. When you stop demanding outcomes, you rediscover gratitude for the present. When you stop clinging to what was, you open your hands to what can be. That is how the Stoics turned pain into purpose. They knew what breaks you is never the event. It is the resistance to it. Once that resistance is gone, life flows again. You don't escape suffering, you transcend it. And that is the difference between the one who merely survives and the one who grows. Ultimately, every life reduces to one truth. You will lose everything you cling to. The people you love, the things you own, the moments you cherish. All of it will pass. But that isn't tragedy. That is reality. And the Stoics didn't fear that truth. They embraced it. Because once you stop fighting impermanence, you stop suffering from it. Marcus Aurelius started every day with the same reminder. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Those words weren't morbid. They were liberating. The awareness of loss made him more alive, more grateful, more present. That is the paradox. The more you accept that everything ends, the more deeply you can love while it lasts. When you let go, you don't stop caring. You start caring correctly. You stop trying to possess people or outcomes. You stop loving conditionally. You stop chasing approval. Instead, you learn to give without expectation, to act without attachment, to live without fear. That is what Stoic love looks like. Not cold detachment, but unconditional peace. It isn't a single act of letting go. It is a daily discipline. You let go of the past every morning when you wake up. You let go of control every time you breathe. You let go of ego every time you choose silence over pride. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, premeditation of adversity. They rehearsed loss not to dwell in pain, but to strengthen the mind so that when life did take something, it found them already free. Epictetus instructed his students, "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it,' but only, 'I have returned it.'" That's the essence of letting go. The understanding that nothing was ever yours to keep, only to care for. You don't own time, health, relationships, or fortune. You borrow them, and gratitude, not grief, is the proper response when they're gone. Look at your life now. The things you are clinging to so tightly, the approval of others, the fear of change, the pain of the past. Are they helping you or holding you back? The Stoics would say, release them. Not because they don't matter, but because they don't define you. Your worth is not in what you hold, but in what you can release with grace. Letting go doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You move differently when you stop being controlled by what you can't control. You walk lighter, you speak wiser. You see clearer, you no longer react from fear. You respond from strength. That is the transformation the Stoics lived for. From fragile to fearless, from restless to rooted. Hardship will come. Loss will challenge you. Change will strip you bare, but in those moments, remember, what you lose on the outside, you gain on the inside. What is taken from your hands will become a part of your heart as wisdom. That is the trade life offers to those who don't resist it. Seneca said, "A great mind becomes invincible when it accepts the inevitable." You can't stop the tide, but you can learn to stand still in it. You can't control the storm, but you can become the calm within it. That is the Stoic art of letting go, turning surrender into strength. And when you live this way, the world can no longer break you, because the person who has nothing left to lose has already won. He's not numb, he's awake. He's not detached, he's free. He walks through chaos untouched, not because he avoids it, but because he understands it. You see, letting go isn't the end of your story. It is the beginning of mastery. It is how you stop living as a prisoner of circumstance and start living as the author of your own peace. That is what the Stoics discovered thousands of years ago, and it is what you can discover now. So when life demands that you release what you love, don't despair. Bow your head, take a deep breath, and let it go. For what you gain in that instant is something none can take away from you. A quiet, unshakable soul.